everybody out there in Cryptid Land. Tonight we have Kevin Estrella on with me, your host, Patrick Perry, and my best bud over there, Dirty. And we're going to keep it real tonight. He's got some really cool stories about UFOs, extraterrestrials, and a few things you probably don't even know that I didn't even know. And you know what? He's also going to bring on his buddy Patrick Giggey again. He's going to be a little bit of a co-host. Not really a co-host, but he's here. He's going to join us tonight too. So join us tonight, me and my buddy Dirty over there,
on the Cryptid Quest Podcast.
Tonight on the Cryptid Quest Podcast, we have Kevin Estrella and his friend Patrick Giggey, who Patrick's been on with us before, and he had some really cool Bigfoot encounters to tell us about. But tonight, Kevin has some really cool UFO extraterrestrial encounters, and he's in a rock band, which I'm guessing is more hard rock than pop.
Oh yeah.
And I love the name Pyramids on Mars because that is a cool name. So, and I suggest everybody go out there and check his stuff out. So we're gonna start tonight with Kevin telling us what really got you into the UFO extraterrestrial scene. What started you?
Sure. Well, actually, it was kind of funny when we talk about pyramids on Mars and the cool name. I was actually in a studio in Welland, Rock Talk with Rick, and he was interviewing me. And the first question he asked is, "How come you named your band Pyramids on Mars?" And I said to him, "Because there are pyramids on Mars." And he's like, "What?" And I said, "Cydonia, you know where the face of Mars? You remember that from the 70s?" He says, "Oh yeah." I said, "Well, just a few miles south of that are the DNM pyramids. There's 5-sided pyramids, and all the geometrics meet up. It's an artificial anomaly." And he just got really silent. And then I said, "Yeah, by the way, I'm contacted by extraterrestrials on a regular basis." And he got kind of uncomfortable with that because he didn't realize I was going to go that deep. But I had to throw it in there, so it's very important to the whole story of who I am, my music, my band, what it is I do, and the contact that I do have, and very importantly, who's behind me here, who I work very closely with. These are the Ponti, and they are Zetas from the planet Pontel, which is the 5th planet orbiting Zeta Reticuli 2. And they reside in an information station under the Sandia Mountains in Albuquerque, New Mexico. This information station is one of 3 or 4 main information stations worldwide that are used by all Star Nations extraterrestrials. So I've been working with them since 2016, and we'll have to back up and tell you how I got to this point here and why they're a major part of my life. But everything is all connected. It's a crazy tale to tell. So the things for me really began back with for my interest in extraterrestrials back when I was in university, and this is like the year 1992, and nobody had internet back then. Only people had internet when it was like the year 2000. But there was this really techie guy who actually had internet, and he had downloaded all these schematics from Bob Lazar of these backwards reverse engineered UFOs that he claimed he'd worked on. And that's what really started getting my interest in the whole thing. Like, UFOs are real. And then I started reading Bud Hopkins' books on alien abductions, and I read several books that way, and was kind of increased my knowledge of what the heck's been going on this planet. And then the movie Communion came out with Christopher Walken, and that really touched me. It was this kind of a scary movie at the same time, but it was very important. I think catalyst for me in really wanting to continue to pursue this extraterrestrial education. And then when the internet first got in around 2000, I spent a lot of time following Richard Hoagland and his work with anomalies, on the moon and on Mars and on other parts of the universe, and all these extraterrestrial anomalies, and how there were bases on the moon. And at first, when I heard that, I was like thinking, okay, this is complete BS. You talk about alien bases on the moon. What kind of conspiracy theory is this? And then I decided to go onto YouTube to check it out. And then lo and behold, they're showing all these images from the 70s of airbrushed stuff out, airbrushed things from on the ground, airbrushed from on from the air. And then all of a sudden I was having flashbacks to my childhood. And then I realized that I had seen these pictures before when I was like 4 or 5 years old, because this was like back in the 70s, around 1976, in my doctor's office, he had this huge book on the moon, which had on the cover was an astronaut on the moon, and it was a big thick book. 1/3 of the book were color pictures of the moon landing and stuff like that, and then the rest of the book was pictures of like the moon from space or from on the ground, and different things that they had photographed. But the whole book was just page after page after page of stuff that had been blurred out, airbrushed. And they're black and white pictures. Like, the technology back then wasn't very good. It was very obvious that somebody was covering stuff up. And I would hold the book up to the light and try and see behind it to see what they were hiding. And you couldn't see it. I thought maybe it was like a scratch and sniff book, that if you scratch the area they were blocking, that you'd be able to see what's going on. But obviously that didn't work. There was some doctoring of all the images that were in this book. And it was like probably 100 pages of stuff that was covered up. So as a kid, I'm really frustrated thinking, what the heck is going on here? And you fast forward 20, 30 years later, and all of a sudden you're seeing this stuff. And then they start uncovering what was actually being hidden. And you start seeing these mile-long towers. You start seeing these destroyed bases. You start seeing other bases. And you start seeing all these anomalies and mining equipment on the moon and tracks and stuff like that. And I realized, oh my God, it's all real. This stuff is real. There are alien bases on the moon. So the reason I'm bringing all this in is because of what happened, what transpired, because I'm a starseed, and I was in a slow process of my awakening, of remembering who I am and what it is that my mission was on this planet. So everything that was happening in the past, I've been able to reverse engineer my life and understand why I thought the way I did when I was young, to prepare me for what would happen August 21st, 2014, that was my awakening. And so it wasn't my first UFO experience, though. It was not my first UFO experience, but it was my most significant one. It's year 2000, and all my friends' kids call me the alien. I'm the alien fanatic. They always would gift me with like alien stuff because I was always studying it. I was really passionate about it. And, I remember year 2000 going out my backyard, looking up at the sky and just talking to whatever grays were out there, saying, look, I know that you're real. I know that you're trying to make disclosure. I want to help. I'll do anything. I feel like this is my purpose in life, is to help you. I really felt that passionately about it. But I didn't realize that I would have to wait 14 more years until something extraordinary would happen. And then we fast forward to the year 2014, and it's August 21st, and I had just put my kids to bed, and I go up my backyard. It's 10:30 at night, and I live in Hamilton, Ontario, in a very, very populated area of the city, in a huge subdivision next to one of the busiest streets, Upper James. And within 7 seconds of me stepping onto my deck, all of a sudden there appeared behind a tree on my right side, my neighbors on my right side, right behind a tree came this object. So the tree is about maybe 30 feet from me, and then this object is like maybe 100 feet behind that tree. Maybe a little bit more, but it was like more like 100 meters. And it was waiting for me. It just kind of came out, poked its head out from behind the tree, and then started just flying over the subdivision. This disc this orangish red disc, just like this, just moving across the sky like at the speed of a helicopter. And at first, I thought it was a meteor because it was glowing like coals, and it seemed to have this mist, this smoke that was coming off the bottom of it and off the top of it, like mist or smoke or steam. And I thought maybe it was a meteor that was coming into the atmosphere. But then I realized, wait a second, no, that's right over the subdivision, and it went right across my backyard. And I was completely flabbergasted. Wasn't even thinking UFO at that point. I didn't know what I was looking at because I'd never seen anything like this in any movie, on any YouTube video. I've never seen anything like this or been that close to it. I probably could have like thrown a rock, if it was hard enough because it was that close.
Wow.
And so it just moved across the distance of my backyard, and then it just turned to go away and started going south towards Binbrook. But then as it simultaneously moved away, then all of a sudden, the light from it, that orangish reddish glow, disappeared, and the object was just black. And then I could see this kind of swirling vortex that was kind of like forming in the front of it. And what that was is that what I was seeing is that it would created a complete plasma stream around the craft. So you can see plasma stream for one side, but if you turn the object, the plasma stream disappears. And the craft was also, even though it looked like a disc, when you turned it on its side, it was actually oblong, like a football. Okay, it was quite interesting. I remember that part about it. And then when it finally moved away, I was completely freaked out, and I thought, I think I just saw a flying saucer. And then I called my wife on the phone and I told her what the heck had happened. And then I went to MUFON, the website, and immediately filed a report to them of as much as I could. And I was completely freaked out for the next 2 weeks. All my life I'd waited for a UFO sighting, and then all of a sudden this happens, and it displayed physics that I had never seen before, that my brain could not comprehend it. I didn't understand. Well, the other thing about it that threw me off was that it had width and it had height, but it had no depth. Had no depth at all. It looked like a piece of paper flying across the sky. It was flat. It looked like I keep describing it like a solar eclipse. Okay, and that's what threw my mind off. How could something be two-dimensional that I'm seeing move across the sky, glowing red like coals, with looks like mist or steam or something coming off the back of it, and makes no sound? Everything about it defied physics, and I was really upset. It would be about 6 months later when I started reading about plasma streams, and then realizing that what the craft was displaying was actually plasma stream. And so we fast forward to the year 2015, and this is a very significant year for me. It was the year that they had the very first UFO conference in Canada, called the Alien Cosmic Expo, and it was taking place in Brantford in the summer of 2015. And it was such a big deal that the Hamilton Spectator main paper here did like a 3-page article on it. And they did one whole page was a write-up of all the speakers who were going to be at this conference. And Stanton Friedman was going to be there. Paul Hellyer was going to be there. And then Grant Cameron, UFO Researcher of the Year, it was doing a presentation from Winnipeg. But when it was what they said his presentation was on, that is when the hairs on my arms stood up. Because at this point, I had already released my first album, Pyramids of Mars. I released it the year before. And Pyramids of Mars, my music, the reason I created this band was as a solo artist to help awaken use it as a catalyst to spread the ET awareness. And that's why I called it Pyramids on Mars. And my music is very instrumental. It's very much like Joe Satriani or Steve Vai, but it has more, the energy is more like Rush and Iron Maiden too. So, it's a mixture of all kinds of stuff, but that's what my music is. And so I'd already released my first CD, and then Grant Cameron's presentation is on extraterrestrials and musicians, and why extraterrestrials are contacting musicians to raise consciousness about the ET presence. And I went, oh my God, this is about me. There's something going on here, and it's bigger than me. And other musicians are being contacted by ETs. It just got really crazy, and I just didn't. At that point, that was the first synchronicity ever in my life, and at that point, um, something was different. Something had completely changed because it just, as I felt like there was something bigger going on that was beyond me, and I was being called to go to this UFO conference that to go and meet with Grant Cameron because I knew that he would have answers to what was happening with me. And so I drive to this thing, and I feel like one of Jesus' disciples. Like my life all of a sudden feels like I'm in a movie. You know, it's just this is surreal. Like there's something bigger going on here. It's bigger than me, and I'm supposed to go and see Grant Cameron. So I get to the UFO conference, and I just happened to catch him before he went on, and I hand him my CD, Pyramids of Mars. He looks down at it. He looks at me and says, "We got to talk." And I said, "Yeah, we got to talk." And then he does his presentation talking about how many musicians have been contacted by extraterrestrials. And it goes on. The list is just endless. Like we're talking about, like, John Lennon, Sammy Hagar, David Bowie, all the members of Ace Frehley from Kiss, all the members of Yes, um, um, Elvis, Al Jurgensen from Ministry, and just tons and tons and tons of people. The Moody Blues. And then he starts, talking about consciousness and how these bands end up creating music by just like seems like downloads coming to them, where the music just comes out of nowhere, and all of a sudden they've got a hit single, and they feel like they never even wrote the song. And so there was all this stuff that was going on that I related to because that experience happened with me with my songwriting process. But then after his presentation, I had gone next door. And then I see MUFON member Stu Bundy. He's one of the head guys who had taken my UFO report the year before. And so I thought this would be a good opportunity to introduce myself. And so when I had forwarded my sighting to him, I didn't have a camera at the time, so I drew some pictures and colored them in of the UFO and what it looked like flying over my backyard. And so he was at his table and he had his back turned, and I just casually take out my pictures and just drop them there on the table. He turns around, looks at me, looks down at the papers, his eyes light up. He says, looks up at me and goes, "Oh my God, I'm so glad you're here. We're doing a presentation on you tomorrow." I'm like, "What?" He says, "Yeah, we're doing a presentation on you tomorrow. You're like one of the most authentic UFO cases we've come across." And I'm like, "Really?" And he said, "Yeah. Can you describe again what the craft looked like when it was moving away from you?" And I said, "Well, it was orangish red and glowing when it was like, on its side, but then as it turned away, all that glowing just disappeared. It was just a black object, with no light." And he said, "That's it. That was the key for us. We checked the skies that night to see any anomalies, if there was any meteors in the sky or other things. And there was nothing else that was in your area at that time. But the fact that you saw a physical object, plasma streams can only be seen on one angle. When you turn the object, the plasma stream disappears." He says, "You were definitely looking at a physical object without a doubt." And so my next question for him was, how many other people reported it? There must have been dozens of people. I mean, it was like flying over one of the busiest subdivisions off of one of the busiest streets in Hamilton. And he said, "Well, that's the thing. Nobody else reported it." And so at this point, I got scared. That didn't make sense. It was impossible. There was no way that I was the only one who saw this craft that was flying 100 feet. The craft was 40 feet wide, 20 feet high, glowing like red coals, sticking out like a sore thumb, and then flying through one of the busiest subdivisions, and nobody else reported it. I said, that doesn't make any sense. And so I ended up meeting up with Grant Cameron, and he said, "Yeah, I was actually at MUFON's presentation, and I saw their presentation on you. Yeah, we'll get together and have a coffee and talk about it." And so we get together in the restaurant, and we're having coffee, and I tell him about the whole thing again, and I say, "Yeah, and nobody else saw this craft. Nobody else reported it." And he just casually says, "Oh yeah, that happens all the time." And I'm like, "What do you mean it happens all the time?" He says, "Yeah, it happens all the time. It's called the Oz effect." And I'm like, "The Oz effect?" He said, "Yeah. they have the ability of being able to shut down whoever it is around them just to have contact with the person who they want to have contact with. They said, it's the same thing happened to John Lennon in New York City, where he saw a UFO. It was close enough for him to throw a brick at it, and he was screaming at all his neighbors on his porch, on his deck to look out the window to see this UFO, and nobody else would come out. And he got so frustrated that he wrote a song. He wrote a song where the lyrics are, "I saw a UFO in New York City, and nobody cares." So, and he said, and there's other person that I knew where they were chased down a highway, a normally busy freeway, by a UFO for 15 minutes. And then he asked them, well, this highway, is it normally busy? And they said, yeah, it's always busy. It's like tons of traffic. But now that I think about it, the entire time this thing was chasing us, there was nobody else on the highway. That doesn't make any sense. And so Grant turns to me and he says, Kevin, they are in direct contact with you. Nobody else saw it. They weren't going out for pizza or a beer run. And when I realized when he said that they were in direct contact with me, that's when all of a sudden I just completely freaked out. I was just like, oh my God, nobody else saw it. Nobody else reported it. And I got this confirmation as well, because after that weekend, I did my first UFO radio interview on the X Zone with Rob McConnell and explained the whole thing. And he's actually from Hamilton. And the next day I was contacted by the producer, and they said, we contacted the Hamilton airport. We contacted everybody else that we could in the vicinity to try and confirm your UFO sighting, August 21st, 2014. Not one other person has, reported it. You're a fraud. Do not ever contact us again. And they shut it right down. So at first I was a little surprised about that, and I was, kind of angry. But then I realized that actually this is a positive, because they did the research to confirm what Grant was telling me. So it wasn't just Grant saying it out loud. These guys did some research and they couldn't find anything, and they felt like they were fools on the radio. And so thus began me trying to piece together what the hell was going on. And then there's another point to this UFO sighting that I hadn't thought about it was like many, many years later when I was being interviewed, and somebody mentioned they just asked one question. They said, Kevin, what did it sound like? And then I was going back in my memory trying to remember what it was that it sounded like. And then I realized that when that craft came out, all of a sudden it was like the sound of all these all the outdoor sound went like being in a vacuum. Everything just went complete silence, deafening silence. Like you couldn't hear the air, you couldn't hear the grass, you couldn't hear nothing. It was like a vacuum the entire time this thing went across. And then as it moved away and it was going like that, the sound started to come back. But I wasn't conscious of it at the time. But I think what they may have done is some kind of time bubble anomaly, where maybe they stopped time for a bit and then we were in a time bubble, and that's why nobody else could see this craft as it was, in the air. I mean, this is just a theory. It's theoretical, but I'm trying to figure out what was going on. So, fast forwarding, because it's a long process. Through Grant Cameron, I started meeting a lot of important people and experiencers, and ended up building this network community that people wanted to talk to me and that I wanted to talk to them. So I ended up meeting with introduction to Misha Johnson, who she hosts weekly support groups for experiencers or for secret space program people or MK Ultra, Star Seeds, galactic families, galactic language. She has multiple different groups and she's been doing it for years. I was introduced to her. I was introduced to Solaris Blue Raven, Michael Lee Hill, who taught me about 432 hertz and the importance of tuning music back to 432 hertz. And I ended up started meeting with all these different people. And but then my ET experiences started to increase after this, and that was when the second synchronicity, the big one, happened. Was I was building pyramids on Mars and trying to build a Twitter following, and so I was following different people and trying to build a network. And then I had this dream. I was in my backyard, and my Joe Satriani Ibanez guitar, which is looks like chrome, is being held in the hands by this Zeta. And but when I looked at the guitar, it had this insignia neck. Yeah, I'll show you. Hang on.
All right, cool.
Yeah, I believe the bottom Ponte right there is Drudy.
And so I saw the guitar exactly like this. And if you
Yeah.
can see, it's got this DNA double helix
Oh yeah.
all on the neck.
That's a very nice guitar.
Thank you. Yeah, this is my Joe Satriani JS1, the very first series that ever came out in 1990. But my guitar was being handed to me exactly like this, with this design that you see on the neck. And I was thinking, that's a really cool guitar design. And I recognized the DNA double helix design because that's actually a crop circle that formed in Wiltshire, England, back in 1997.
Nice.
And so they were handing the guitar back with this DNA signature on it. And then I remember waking up from the dream, and when I was waking up, my hands were actually in the air like this, like I was reaching out for the guitar. And I'm like, I woke up with so it's like because they were handing it to me, and I'm like, this is freaky as hell. Synchronicity. 3 days after this dream, I'm followed by neck illusions on Twitter. And what neck illusions are is they have custom graphics for necks. So they create designs for necks. And so I'm thinking, this is interesting. And so I contacted Mark and Jessica from Neck Illusions, and I told them, I sent them, the images of this crop circle. And I said, can you make a design like this, but make it more green, that kind of looks like Steve Vai's first gem that he made with the vines? And he thought it was a brilliant idea. And then I ended up getting an endorsement with the company for this design. And then they've created several, based upon this design as well. That's on their websites, and they've been selling them for the last 8 years. But I ended up becoming a Neck Illusions artist because of this. But I know that there was a significant synchronicity to what this is about. And then it was when I met Solaris Blue Raven that she explained, well, Kevin, that's very easy. That DNA, it represents DNA activation, which is what you're doing when you're playing your music.
It's cool.
So I was just like, wow. And so then she was teaching me about, about consciousness and about DNA, about integration and playing in the purity, and about DNA activation. So, things were slowly being taught to me in different ways. Hang on 1 second.
You're good.
So, and then a couple years later, it's about 2006, and then I'm introduced to I was on Misha Johnson's one of her support groups, and I met a friend. We'll call him Kale, and he is from Queensland. And what's interesting about him is that he has been connected telepathically to a tall white star nation for his entire life since he was a child. So the tall whites are humanoid, but they have like blonde hair, and they're very thin, and they live to be about
Nordic.
Yeah, Nordic basically. I guess we can put another light on since it's getting dark here. Hang on.
You're fine.
Okay, not the best lighting I want, but a little bit better.
I can see you.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, we can see everything. That's okay. So anyway, I ended up becoming friends with him, And then he says to me, "Do you realize that there's a group of extraterrestrials using Twitter? It's at Sandia Wisdom." And I'm like, "No way. Are you serious?" He said, "Yeah." And he explained who they were, and they're the Ponte right back here. And I decided to check them out on Twitter. And I go on there, and at that point there was only four of the Ponte who were on Twitter, who were tweeting, which was Drudy, who you can see on the bottom there. She's public relations. Commander Tilcom, you can see it says I work for Tilcom. Well, I do work for Tilcom officially. And then there's Tini, and then there's my buddy Radar, or Rahaz is his other name, but everybody calls him Radar. Yeah, I got that nickname from MASH.
MASH, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. But and so I was just kind of following them for a while, but it was just the way they were speaking. It was just very different and very to the point, and they were careful with their words, and it's just the way they spoke were very polite, and a communication style that I hadn't seen before. And so then I started jumping in on conversations and stuff like that, and talking and stuff, and then eventually I was able to direct message with them and started conversations because they were curious about me. And then I was talking to them. Tini was talking to me, and they said that they wanted to introduce me to their telepath here on Earth to talk with her. And at this point, I didn't realize that that Sue Walker, Sue Walker is the telepath for the Ponte. And she's a professional telepath. She's worked with the CIA, FBI, and all many different people in investigations with missing persons and stuff like that. She's been doing this professionally for years, but she's a professional telepath. And at the point, Sue was the one who does all the tweeting for them. So she technically is there, but she's the translator for the Ponte. And it was still Tini who was talking on Twitter and saying that she wanted to introduce me to Sue. And eventually I got a phone call from Sue, and we ended up talking, and we hit it off immediately. And then she explained to me about how she was contacted by the Ponte many like back in 2015, and then she was learning about them, and they've been teaching about their culture, and then they requested to have a Twitter account open so that they could try out this social experiment to see if they could reach a massive audience to be able to communicate with us Kiwa, as they call us, KWH, which is Earth. The Earth, like water people, is the name they call us. And so for many years, like I was like, I've been following them, on Twitter every single day since 2016. I have hundreds of snapshots of their tweets of important things that they've talked about and things like that. And I really understand them. And then I just was developing a personal relationship with them, particularly a lot with Radar and also with Tini. And so as this developed, Tini was having more private conversations with me. And then she said, "Kevin, do you realize that music can be communicated on a telepathic wavelength?" And I was like, "No, I had no idea. I didn't understand that was even possible." And she was explaining about that communication, on an emotional wavelength with purity, playing from your heart and soul, communicates at a telepathic level. And she was kind of insinuating that I was already doing this, but I just wasn't consciously aware of it. I was actively doing it, but I just wasn't conscious that what was happening. And I asked her, "Can you help me to develop this communication style?" And she said yes. And then she said, and the telepathic message will actually be communicated and recorded on the actual digital copies. It'll be in there, in forever space. And so then she was working with me with this for quite a while. And then something really interesting happened. I had my first Ponte visit, and I was told by Sue. She said that you're going to be visited by the Ponte, and you will know that you were visited because something will be out of place in your apartment. And so, 2 weeks later, I go to sleep, and In the middle of the night, I was awoken to the sound of somebody in my living room, and I check out my living room and I couldn't see anybody. There was nobody there, so I went back to sleep. But I felt like I was being watched. And then somewhere in the early mornings, this liquid drained out of my left ear. It was like warm liquid, like if you'd been swimming in a pool, and you had water in your ears for like a day or so. It was really warm liquid that drained out of my ear, and it really annoyed me so much it actually woke me up, and I'm squiggling my fingers in my ear, going, "What the heck was that?" And I wake up in the morning, didn't think much of it, and then I went to work. Then I came home, and then I was walking around to my desk, and then I noticed that I have this statue of a guitar player, and he was facing the wall. And I was thinking, why is he facing the wall? Was I drinking last night and I dropped him, put him back? No, I wasn't drinking last night. And I realized, oh my God, Sue said something about out of place. And so then I went onto Twitter and I took a picture of it, and I asked them, do you guys know anything about this? And they said, he was a curious individual. Our apologies if we did not put him back properly. And I'm like, oh my God, you guys were here. And then my friend contacted me, and he said, curious, Judy, on the bottom here, she's here right now, and she's waiting for me to go to sleep. And I said, why? And he said, something about removing black goo. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He says, they're going to put something in my head. And all of a sudden, I'm piecing things together. I thought, wait a second, what the heck was that just drained out of my ear?
Yeah.
And so then I ran up to my bed, and then I pulled my bed sheets back, and I look at my pillow, and right there where my ear was is this reddish brown stain.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, what the heck is this? And I tell him, I said, there's a reddish brown stain of liquid that drained out of my ear. And he said, oh, yes, thank you for reminding me about that. They told me that would be the last process as the stuff leaves our bodies. And I'm like, what did they do to us? And then this is what happened. So for the next week, my body was exfoliating all this stuff, all these heavy metals. My urine smelled like ammonia.
Oh my gosh.
It kind of like metal, like different metals and stuff. Yeah. And my body was exfoliating all this stuff, and it was going on for a whole week. And my ears were sore, but I could feel there was something changing in my brain consciousness. And then by day 7, something completely miraculous happened. My brain was no longer foggy. I was able to activate my brain and focus on any part of my brain and put pressure or focus or energy into any part of my brain and activate any part of my brain. And I realized that they had whatever they had done. What they had done, I think it was some kind of nutrient dip. They dipped us in this nutrient bath, and it goes in everywhere. And what was happening was that it was clearing out all the toxins that our bodies accumulate because of the poisons in our food.
Oh my gosh.
They cleaned out my pineal gland. They cleaned that all out too. And my brain felt like if I was like 4 or 5 years old. Like I just felt like a completely reborn person. Not very strong. It was like a bad radio station. And so they were working on clearing me out so that my telepathic projection with my music, or them being able to hear me telepathically, would be stronger. And so what happened is that they did this procedure on me, and then about a month later, they repeated the procedure all over again. And then once again, I woke up, and once again, there was a new stain on my brand new pillowcase. The other pillowcase, I had actually cut the whole part out and put that into a bag because that was evidence, whatever it was that they had put inside me. And so then the next time they did it again. And then after about another week or so, then all of a sudden I was able to access all kinds of parts of my brain. Everything was completely changing. I felt like a brand new person. And then the Ponte confirmed, this is, oh yeah, we can hear you loud and clear now. We can really hear your telepathic projection. So whatever they had done, they made me now a real conduit for telepathic projection of when I'm speaking and when they want to connect with me telepathically, or when I'm projecting my music out, it's a lot louder. And so that was the whole reason why they did this whole thing to me. So this starts bringing me to my extraterrestrial visitations, which started to take place. And this is where it gets very interesting. So Drudy down below, she's she greets a lot of the Star Nations who come to the base, and she knows them very well, and she knows their families, and she'll talk to people and say, oh yeah, and how's your daughter Dana doing, and and Zerbert and stuff, and how's the xenomorph doing, and everything else, so it's a joke, and so I don't know if she had anything to do with this, but this would be my first extraterrestrial visitation that took place in my apartment. And basically, what happened was it was like early in the morning, and then I'm trying to go to sleep, and then when I'm just halfway asleep, where I'm in that alpha theta state, I could hear this rustling going on with my duvet. Like it sounded like somebody was like crawling around on my bed, and then I wake up, and then the sound is gone. They're not there. And so then I allow myself to doze out again. And then all of a sudden I can hear this sound again of somebody like crawling onto my duvet. And I wake up and the sound's gone. And I'm thinking, I think there's somebody here who wants to visit with me. And so this time I allow myself to rest and to relax. And then I allow myself to start to slip into a dream state. And then I'm immediately popped into this lucid dream. And I had only, just begun lucid dreaming at that point. And the difference between a lucid dream and a dream is that in a lucid dream, you're very conscious. It's like being awake. You're in total control. It's like a higher consciousness, actually, in a different realm. But in this dream state, I was basically lying there in bed, like if I was awake. So I'm lying on my side, and I'm lying in bed, and I could hear there's somebody behind me, and they're just kind of like, lying down next behind me, and they're just kind of like settling in. And it was almost like they were just kind of waiting to see how I was going to react. And they saw that I was completely comfortable. And so then they turn around, grab my shoulder, and throw me down like this on the bed. And then she gets and sits on top of me. And I'm looking at this reptilian woman. This reptilian, she's got she's got very, very small scales on her face. Like her face is like very small green scales. She had kind of a flat snout. She had a slit for a mouth. She had these amber, reptile eyes. Her head though was like 3 cloves of garlic, like a big bump here, and a big bump on the top. And she had these kind of greenish, bluish. No, there was more bluish scales that went along her neckline and over where her ears would have been, like that. She had this like a stripe like that went along there. And she had this really cool blue mohawk. So she had this hair that just came out the top of her head, and it was hanging down to one side, this blue coarse mohawk that kind of looked like horsehair. And she's sitting on top of me. And body-wise, her body was kind of like very much like Mystique from X-Men, the one who can like metamorph and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like her body was kind of like that. And then she's like on top of me, looking down at me. And then she takes my hand, and then I see her holding my hand, and I see her hand, and it's like she has 3 long fingers, and then claws. Like claws are about this long, and she's holding my hand. And she takes my middle finger, and then she puts it into her mouth. And then she starts sliding my finger across the top of her bottom tooth. And I say tooth. It was like one tooth. Kind of like a rabbit. A rabbit has like one big tooth in the bottom. It was kind of like that. But it was razor sharp. And I'm like, and it was really weird. but it's kind of some way it was kind of like turning me on, and and so then I try and flip her over, and then as I flip her from me being on the bottom and flipping her onto her back, somehow she metamorphed and transformed into a woman with a long dress, and then I woke up, and then she was gone. But then it wasn't a dream. Like this was not a dream. This was like she was there. I heard her before I was even going to sleep. 3 times I heard her, and she was there. And then a friend of mine who's not too far away, I get on Twitter and I start direct messaging him. This is like 5:30 in the morning, and I could already see a ... from him, like he was writing to me before I even wrote back to him. And I said, "Dude, I was just visited by a reptilian woman." And he said, "Yeah, I know. She just showed up here." I'm like, "What?" And he said, "Yeah, I just came out of a dream where it was the equivalent of like being in university, and you go to knock on your friend's door, your friend's dormitory door, and then the door opens, and here's a woman in your room going, oh, hi," and then she just kind of runs down the hallway. And then I was getting this image of this ship that she was flying in. And so he said all this stuff before I even had mentioned or even told him about my experience. So it was freaking incredible that what this transpired with this introduction to this reptilian lady. And many years later, I ended up working with an artist, and we did a collaboration to draw a picture of her and what she looks like. I might be able to show that to you if you'd like to see it.
Yeah, you got that picture, Kevin?
Yeah, the woman who I worked with, she's an experiencer too, and she is when she did the initial drawing, she did an amazing job, and she nailed her when she did the initial drawings on paper. But then when she started to like do the actual portrait with the coloring and stuff like that, for some reason it just wasn't turning out, and it was kind of disappointing, the final finished product of it, and it looked more like a cartoon compared to like other portraits. But I'll show you the drawing that we had done of her. Come on, where are you? Okay, here we go. Hopefully I can hold that up. See it.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Very cool.
Yeah.
But that's exactly what she looked like. So she had a very bulbous head.
Yeah.
That was kind of like cloves of garlic with this mohawk hanging down, a snout for a nose, slit for a mouth. The chin line is quite right, and then along her ears, along the neck was like a bluish green scales, and she was very very striking looking, very pretty.
I mean, if you want to, I mean, it's up to you. If you want to send that, we can tag it to the episode.
Yeah, we could definitely do that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So that was really cool. I also, yeah, not a problem. And then I started being visited by other star nations, and it's been happening on a regular basis. I mean, the Ponti here, they show up here on a regular basis. They kind of like have almost moved in. They're always showing up. I play my PS4, PlayStation 4, and they like to stand behind the couch and watch me play. And I'll feel them. So every once in a while, I'll bump the back of the couch and let me know that they're there. Or sometimes they'll tap me on my shoulder. So like they just drop in. They also have decided to they played some practical jokes on me. They've moved stuff around on me for years, where I have certain things in places, and then I'll come home, and I live alone, and they'll have taken one of my crystals and they'll move it over somewhere else, and they'll just move stuff around on me to see if I'm paying attention, or just let me know that they visited.
So So
Yeah, go ahead.
how many different types do you believe are on this planet?
Of different extraterrestrials? Oh, there's probably
Yes,
hundreds. There's probably hundreds, but
hundreds.
we've only seen maybe 25% of those because 75% of the Earth is covered in water.
So you believe a lot of them are, which I hear a
There's
lot
a
of
lot
stories
of
about
aquatics.
crafts coming out of the water or this or that,
Yes.
but a lot of them
There's a,
they just stay under the water.
well, there's a lot of aquatic star nations as well.
Oh wow.
Um, Water is probably the most important commodity in the universe. And from what the Ponti have explained was that Earth is a very important planet, and it was strategically put here because of its water. So that's what when this planet was designed, it was put here for that specific purpose. Yes, this planet was designed.
So
So
well, I don't doubt that. So and you've talked about them having bases on Earth or not on
yeah,
Earth on the moon. Um,
yes.
are there more than one at on the moon? I mean, are they do they conflict with each other or
I know that Commander Tilcom, he often is attending Federation meetings on the moon. So that much I know for sure. Radar, my Ponte buddy, who also plays guitar, he's already told me that he can, because of the people he has contact with, he can definitely get Pyramids of Mars a gig at the base on the moon. And so,
That's cool.
that'd be awesome? Can I go?
sure, yeah,
Front row tickets for us.
yeah. So he's
So
told me about this, so that's kind of cool. Yeah.
so trying to think where I was going from the next question. Okay, so and I know this is like a little off base from where what we've been talking about, but I'm into all kinds of cryptids, and I know extraterrestrials aren't necessarily considered a cryptid, but I dig them. I dig them, and I like talking about them. And they say sometimes Bigfoot has a connection with them.
Oh yeah, they sure do.
Okay, well, what do you know? What do you know about it? Can you
Oh,
tell me anything?
yeah, I was visited by one.
You were visited by one?
Oh, absolutely. Oh yeah, I've had many encounters with the Sasquatch. You also have to realize that Sue Walker, who's the telepath for the Ponte, she also does a lot of work for the Sasquatch. She has done at least probably 200 portraits of Sasquatch. She does all these portraits, but she also does portraits of Sasquatch. So they show up to her telepathically, and then she will, she'll draw the portrait. She'll leave the portrait in her studio. They will come at nighttime, check out the portrait, and then they will then provide corrections over the next couple days to fix the portrait. But they've been visited by the Sasquatch multiple times, and I've been a witness to it as well when I've gone to visit Sue Walker in Otter in Albuquerque.
So,
But yeah,
I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but I got to ask a question before I forget it. So, do you believe Sasquatch are from this planet or are they from
yes.
somewhere else? They are
No,
from this planet.
they're originally from this planet. However, they have branched out to many other planets because of who they are. They are very adaptable to multiple different environments. They can be in hot environments, they can be in freezing environments because their fur is so thick that that mosquitoes and insects can't get to them at all. So they're very adaptable to multiple different environments. Plus, they're also many of them are telepathic, but they're also interdimensional. So
Okay.
they can jump from physical to interdimensional, like walking from a beach into a forest.
So I've been hearing you talk about the telepathy. Does that I know Sasquatch apparently have telepathic ability, aliens, and you said you talk to them, and so does that carry over to humans? Do you have any kind of telepathy ability with humans, or is it
I've
just with
just
extraterrestrials?
I've just recently started to have telepathic ability with people. Well, actually, my first time with people happened about 2 or 3 years ago with a friend of mine, personal friend, who needed some healing, and she asked a whole bunch of people to show up online at a certain time to, well, actually, it wasn't even online, just to basically log in with it mentally and do a meditation with her at a specific time. And when I did that, and I got into an alpha theta state, I heard her say my name clear as day. Like she said, Kevin, and I heard it telepathically, and that was the first time that I ever heard a human voice through telepathy. So that completely blew my mind. But it's recently in the last few months. It's funny you mention that because I went to visit Sue Walker this summer, and the most important thing that I was asking, because I needed to talk to Tilcom and Tani, and I said, I really need to get my telepathy levels up to Sue Walker's level. And they said, so you want teachers? I said, well, I guess that's what I'm asking for. And they said, done. I was like, just like that? And they said, from July until September, you will have several Ponte teachers who will be teaching you at nighttime while you're asleep. And at first, you're going to start to hear your neighbors telepathically. Do not be alarmed. And then eventually, you're going to be able to differentiate the Ponte's voice and be able to hear us. And so what happened? This started about the middle of August, or the beginning of August, where I was sleeping, and then I wake up, maybe 4 o'clock in the morning, and then I'm really groggy, and then I'm like in the process of just about to fall asleep, or I'm in that alpha theta state. I just leaving my mind clear, and then all of a sudden I started hearing stuff, like I was hearing a ball drop, doo, 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 like that. Or then I heard a bit of a conversation with somebody, or I was seeing an image. I was looking through somebody's eyes. I could see somebody, it looked like they're in like a hotel, looked like a hotel bar, and he was stepping off from a three platform onto a lower platform, meeting with this Asian woman in a red suit, with a light on. She's smiling at him. Like I was seeing through people's eyes. I was hearing stuff telepathically, and I was thinking, I heard that. I saw that. I heard that. And then I remember I heard in my left ear telepathically, I could hear it what sounded like somebody's sun blinds were banging against a windowsill from the wind. Like, so I think I was like picking up on people who were sleeping, and they were hearing stuff, while they're sleeping, and I'm hearing what they're hearing. So all this crazy stuff started to happen, just like what the Ponte predicted. And then it was I think it was September 4th, and there was one morning where I was doing the same thing and letting myself get into that state again, where it's like almost asleep but not quite, alpha theta, letting my mind relax, to quiet my mind. So that's the whole process, was quieting my mind so that I could differentiate my thoughts from the thoughts that were coming to me from other people. And then that's when things started to happen. And then I heard clear as day, and I know that Tani, my teacher, people who have heard her telepathically, including Sue, said that she sounds exactly like actress Judi Dench, who has a very proper English, like British accent. She actually played the Queen in the movie Shakespeare. So very, very proper, and very, speaking very much like the Queen. And I heard in the Judi Dench voice every morning and every evening, practice it. I heard it. And I'm like, is that Tini? I heard her. I think I heard her. And so then I went onto Twitter, and I was really excited. And I said, guys, for the last couple of weeks, I've been hearing things telepathically, hearing people and hearing things going on. And then this morning I heard it sounded like Judi Dench's voice, like everybody says Tani, sounds like her. I heard every morning and every evening practice it, meaning practice what I'm doing, listening to conversations. And then I got a response back that day from the Ponte, and they said, yeah, we were placing bets over here at the mountain when you'd get back to us when you heard Tani talking to you. and they said, Tani says that you've been really working on practicing differentiating your own thoughts from those who are coming to you telepathically, and you're getting it, and you finally heard her voice, her talking to you, and it looks like one of your girl fans from Pyramids of Mars, one of the last Estrellitas, which is what they nickname themselves. One of them won the bet. So,
all right. Well, okay. So the telepathy, man, I got to stick on it just a second longer. So does it happen when you send it to somebody or they send it to you?
Well, hearing my neighbors, it would just happen. It was just like happening randomly. But I had to be like in a relaxed state where I'm almost asleep, and then it's almost like a dream state. Sometimes it's hard to figure out. Are these pretty strong, actually, much stronger than I expected.
All right. Well, Kevin, man, it's been a lot of fun. Hell of a time talking. I have to have you back on, dude. I really do. Patrick, you're welcome to come back on again.
There's so much more to talk about. Like I've only gotten like 25% into.
I know. I could stay on here forever talking to you. We'll definitely get you back on here. So before we get out of here, either Patrick or Kevin, do you have anything you want to promote? You want to put the word out there?
Anybody who wants to to follow my music, go to my website, pyramidsonmars.com. So that's where you'll have links to where you can get my music or listen to it. There's music videos as well, links there to the YouTube channel, and lots of interviews that I've done, a lot of magazine reviews there as well of my stuff. I've done lots of magazine reviews. There's lots of personal interviews of my own ET experiences. They're on my website. Great place to follow me there. Also, look for Pyramids on Mars on YouTube to follow my channel. Lots of music videos there, and of course, you can follow me on on Facebook too. So I'm pretty much everywhere.
Very cool.
You can also find me digitally on any platform, any digital platform like Spotify or anything else. Deezer. I'm on all of it. So very easy to find. Pyramids on Mars.
Awesome. And I seriously love the name. Anything from you, Patrick?
Yeah, I was trying to tell the Sasquatch what I was going to say is tell them people, the audience, how amazing they are. And if you want to contact with the Sasquatch, is what I got from Sunbow. He's the author of the book Sasquatch Message to Humanity, as you speak to them direct. And you could just introduce yourself like you'd talk to anyone else, Hi, my name's Patrick, and you can tell them a story about your childhood, anything really. And just because you don't see them doesn't mean they're not there, And you might even get recognition that they are there. You might hear a branch break because that's one of their forms of communication.
Well, you know what? There's a lot of things out there that we can hear, but we can't see. And that's what keeps life interesting. So, thank you everybody out there in Cryptid Land for joining Patrick, and Kevin on the Cryptid Quest Podcast. And you know what, everybody?
Keep it creepy.
Yeah, out in the woods where the shadows creep, I'm trying to find a legend that the people keep. Bigfoot's the name, got a story to tell. Footprints in the mud, can't you hear the bell? Whispers in the night, can you feel that chill? Bigfoot on the run, he's a legend, keep it real. Bigfoot, yeah, he's the talk of the town. Creeping through the trees, never wearing a frown. Legend of the forest, he's got a big stride. As the trap beats thump, you know he's got pride. like I'm on a quest. Searching for the homie, you know he's the best. Got my camera ready, heightened senses on blast. Snap a shot of Sasquatch, legend unsurpassed. Eyes in the dark, you can't catch what you can't see. King of the woods, living wild and free. Bigfoot, yeah, he's the talk of the town. Creeping through the trees, never wearing a frown. Legend of the forest, he's got a big stride. As the trap beats thump, you know he's got pride.